My name is Cherayla. I'm a longtime judge, and I'm so excited to be able to have a conversation with two of our finest fellow judges. I'm going to introduce them right now. Sky Seery is a counselor at North Platte High School in North Platte, Nebraska. Previously, Sky spent 20 years in libraries in different roles from library aide to director in school, academic, and public libraries. She will always wholeheartedly support libraries and the services they provide within their communities. Please give a virtual round of applause for Sky as she joins us today. Our next panelist is Barbara Weeg. She has served for 40 years as the University of Northern Iowa librarian in Cedar Falls, Iowa. She began her career providing reference service and library instruction and then expanded her responsibilities to include selection in psychology and counseling. More recently, as a collection strategist librarian, she selected information resources from all formats in those disciplines, as well as an additional social sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, and technology. Barbara has served as a MIPA reviewer and judge since 2019. So she's a fellow COVID judge like myself. She also offers her perspective as a contributor to the scholarly lecture and co-edited a recent 3-volume set on mentoring in academic libraries. Please give a virtual round of applause for Barbara as well. So now you both need to unmute because I'm going to be asking you lots of really cool questions. But the first one is, how would you prefer people to ask you questions if they have follow-ups? Do you mind if they just use the raise hand, or would you prefer them put it in the chat and we can have Paul monitor with his excellent monitoring skills? What do you prefer?
It might, since we'll be so involved in providing highly intellectual responses, it might be good if Paul would monitor the chat to be, because I'm not sure I can monitor both.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely be monitoring raised hands. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. And if you want to vocalize that, raise your hand. I will most likely ask you to vocalize it at some point anyway, just to have a variety of voices here on the recording. Okay. I also want to say I will get you out of here by 8 o'clock because we do need to watch this historic event. Okay. So that is my goal. And we're going to, oh, you have your hand raised. Look at you using your skills. Yes, sir.
I'm demonstrating it. Just for the people that aren't used to Zoom, where you get the raise your hand, I believe it's now called a react or reaction button. You should find it in your tool panel down there. So
it has a little heart turned to its side. There's an arrow. If you hit that, you can, recognize hand gestures, or hit the heart itself. And there's a raise hand. It's a long rectangular bar at the bottom of those effects. Okay, I think we have that out of the way. So I have a list of questions here, and our panelists have actually received the questions, but I will not ask them in order. I think it makes for a more interesting conversation if we kind of mix it up a little bit. And so my first question for you, Sky, is what do you see as a benefit of book awards to publishers? And as you start to think about that answer, I want you to also think about how it's a benefit to authors and how it's a benefit to the general public. And Barbara, I'll be asking you the same questions. I'm really interested.
Okay. I mean, no pressure. A benefit of book awards to publishers. It goes, the way I see it, it goes hand in hand. Because the book awards, not only are the authors recognized, the publishers are recognized, which in turn libraries recognize. And so it's like a big bowl in which everything gets mixed up together. And I guess for the publishers, the more that they can submit books or items to be judged, then you just never know what's going to happen. And if those books win awards, then it's a great benefit for them because they have the opportunity to grow further.
For sure. For sure. Barbara, did you want to talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. I kind of thought about a question or very related to this. So as a collection strategist librarian, I was responsible for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think 13 disciplines, we're not talking just like real specialized thing. I'm doing psychology, counseling, physics, technology, all those. And I don't have that much time as a librarian to read books myself. As a librarian, I hardly read the books I bought for the library. So, I rarely, I should say. So what it means is, first of all, as a librarian, I have to be cognizant of the discipline's publishing trends, as well as what the faculty and students on my campus are doing. And I needed to use authoritative information in selecting books. And my goal was not just to select quality books, they had to be high quality given budgetary cuts. So I'm going to say, to me, as a consumer of book reviews, it didn't matter to me who won the award, whether it was an author award or whether it was a publisher award. So I, as a librarian, probably didn't distinguish. I would recognize authors or researchers' names over time, but it didn't matter to me that it was an author award or a publisher award. But I will say book awards provided identification. Okay, so I'll take an example. Let's say I was going to buy books to beef up the collection in LBGT books.
LGBTQ.
Yeah, plus in history in the Midwest. Okay, there's a particular author I have in mind. So anyway, I was going to beef up the collection in that area. If I found book awards in that area, that would help me know that the book is on that topic. Also, a lot of book awards will have in their website a brief description of the book, so I could quickly see. So instead of looking at this broad history or history of the Midwest or LGBTQ history, I was able to do the 3 LGBTQ history in the Midwest. So identify those books, description if they have it, and then authoritativeness. I would learn that other people have judged these books to be of high quality. Since I can't be knowledgeable in all things, even though I might think I can.
I was gonna say, I don't, Barbara, you.
And my dad was a physicist, if that helps anything over there with those physicists. But yeah, so to me, the MIPA Book Award can bring greater attention to an author or publisher's works.
So it definitely impacts that visibility in the marketplace,
Right.
especially with, like you're saying, budget cuts. Libraries are always getting cut for some reason. And that visibility, it stands out to you, like just being a part of an awards, whether they won or not. As you said, it's just being a part of an award program that is I don't want to say popular, but I will say people know what it is. Okay. Renowned is the word I was looking for.
I actually have an example, if I could, of how what I say the loop can be closed. And this is not on LGBTQ. And I might say a little bit on that too. But this is a book that won several MIPA awards. I think a couple of years ago. It's called The Generous Fish. Okay. But why I like this author as a MIPA reviewer is right down here. Winner of silver awards in children's picture book and design illustration. So this author is becoming known through the MIPA award, but then also closes the loop and lets others know, hey, my book is an award winner and this is the award. So if I had something that I would ask of publishers in particular, would be to help us, and I use us, I'm not a member of MIPA, but I'm a judge. And I think if people can help close the loop, so the publishers provide a link for the books that are MIPA awards in their publishers' catalogs. I think that would be quite helpful.
So the benefit to publishers, authors, and the general public, that's a great example of someone and their publisher doing exactly that. I'm going to back up just a little bit. I wanted to kind of get deep at first and get those brains moving, and then we can come back. How did you both become judges for the Midwest Book Awards? I mean, part of my story was in the bio, but I'm curious for you two. Coming from Nebraska and Iowa, how did you find out about it? Barbara, you go first.
Okay. Jennifer Baum put out a call on a list, which included librarians.
Like an email list? Or like Facebook, or where was it?
I don't read Facebook. So an email list, it came through email. Well, I believe what she did is contacted the national or the state associations and said, hey, we're looking for book reviewers. We really want librarians. And so if you're interested, come do this thing for free. No, she didn't say that part. I'm adding that just so people don't think we're paid, right?
Let them know, Barbara.
So I think it was really a call for reviewers. Yeah.
Sky, what was your experience?
I think it came across a listserv from one of the organizations that I belong to, and it may have been Mountain Plains Library Association.
Okay.
Which is multi-state. And, at the time I was like, well, why not? It sounds like fun. I mean, I've always wanted to. I write myself, not that I'll ever be published, but it's
well, that's a conversation we have to have offline because I don't know why not. But go on.
I just wanted to see more of the process. And anytime that I can, while I know it benefits, or the ultimate goal, I guess, is to benefit MIPA, the authors and the publishers, it was also a benefit to me because I was introduced to books that maybe wouldn't have come across my desk.
Right.
Or books that I wouldn't have the opportunity to share with others and my community.
I feel the same way, Sky. I saw it on Instagram. So I know, Barbara, you're not on Instagram, but I definitely am heavy. Okay. And it came across my Instagram feed and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love to read. I'm going to, say this. And I remember even completing the form, like, what library are you a librarian for? And I'm like, it was all the way at the bottom. Like, I'm not a librarian. Will you please still consider my application? And, it has been so interesting going through books that I would never pick up on my own and things that I've learned from these authors, the publishers that I follow now on their social media because I'm interested in what they do. And it has increased the visibility to me and to my friends. And so that's the part that's interesting. Like, oh, you should check this book out. And sometimes I'm going to ask you this because this is how I feel. Sometimes I think that authors can spend more time with their cover art, right? Because there's a book I would never pick up based on the cover art, but once I begin reading it, it opens up a whole world to me. So for you two, when you get your boxes of books from Jennifer, are there books that speak to you more because of what the art looks like, or do you just go in order of how it is on the sheet? I'm so curious as a fellow judge, how do you choose what books that you read first?
Oh, have you opened a can of worms?
Barbara, I already know you're going to go off on a tangent. Don't do it.
Not a tangent. Everything I've said is relevant. I was looking at studies today on how important is cover art. So I'm going to say it depends.
Okay.
Now, am I personally attracted by the cover art? I think if there's a disconnect between the cover and the subject, yes. And
Okay.
it's a negatory for me. I look at also the physical hand of a book. How does the book feel? And I think,
Is it pages too, or is it just how it
yeah,
feels in your hand when you
yeah.
pick it up? Like, as
And
you
so I
actually.
do Total Book Divine, which also includes kids' books. And I
Okay.
think that's important even for kids' books, that
Mhm.
there's a reason why we all believe that the physical, I'm going to sound archaic or whatever, but there are reasons why we think the physical book should still exist. Now, I also am a high into electronic publishing. One of my things was accessibility services,
For
and
sure.
it's just a lot easier to make electronic books available. Not simple, but easier. So to me, preeminent between the two is the title. A descriptive title, not particularly catchy, but more descriptive. Now, admittedly, I'm doing nonfiction selection, so I think that plays a role.
Yeah, definitely. Sky, oh, well, you didn't really answer. What you said was
Yeah,
that,
this title book, does the book cover turn me off or turn me on, or
yeah,
yeah. Um, it's okay. I want the content to be there.
for sure. Sky, what
Now,
about you?
if book cover, if it's an element of the judging, I will judge it. But if you're asking me personally,
I don't judge based on the cover, but I will read in order of how the covers look.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sky, what do you think?
I'm totally going to admit it. I judge a book by its cover. I will still read it though. And
Same.
it's partially because it's how my brain works. I always want to see if the book matches the cover,
Mhm.
or like I kind of analyze it in that way. And it's interesting because I've judged several different categories. And so
Same.
um I always have to then, I guess, retrain my brain into, wait, what are you judging right now? Like, are you judging the book, or are you judging the illustrations, or whatever the quality? So
Yeah.
I definitely think about that a lot, but I also then try to figure out why that cover was selected. And I'm thinking of, there was one cover in a category that I judged this year that I call very trendy. It's kind of been the covers on a very large amount of books.
Mhm.
Um, the cartoony
Mhm.
adults, you see it on every single bookshelf. And so I was really interested. It was a great book, but you know, I was like, this is definitely a trend because I've seen it on so many bookshelves in stores, in libraries, and it's something that people are obviously gravitating towards right now. So,
That is a great segue to a question for you, Sky. It says, how long have you been a judge? Because I don't think I have that in your bio. Do you know when you
oh,
started?
I can't remember, but I thought it was 19.
That was a good year for MIPA to get some great judges. Let me shout
Yeah.
out to you, Paul and Jennifer. Okay, so over the years, I mean, between the three of us just judging, we've read 200, 250 books. I want to know, based on what you just said about, oh, I've seen this layout on a cover before. Are there any insights about the books that come across the Midwest Book Awards? What, let me rephrase that. What insights have you gleaned from the books that have come across that you might want to share with a potential submitter to the book awards, to an author or a publisher that says, oh, I think I want to submit this book? Coming from judges' mouths right now, Sky, What insights would you relay to the publisher or the author about that?
I've read such a wide variety of books, even when they're in the same genre,
Yeah,
just the writing styles are so different, or um, yeah, it might be a romance genre, but
there's a
I'm
little
not
thriller
sure.
in there, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so I think, my biggest thing is submit the book.
Are you talking to yourself, Miss Writer, but I don't think I will be
No, not
published?
at all, not at all.
Okay.
But I think that, I've come across so many books that I don't know if I would have necessarily picked them up, or, you know, they would have had the opportunity to fall into my lap so that I can enjoy them. And I'm so lucky in that way that people take that chance and submit their books, and you never know what's going to happen. So for me, that's the best.
I'm gonna piggyback. I agree, and I think that's why whenever someone says something like, "I'm a writer, but I don't know if I ever publish," it's something that's in their mind that they want to do, but something's holding them back, and that would be my suggestion as well. The judges that have done this, especially for a few years, our brains are wired to accept all different types of art. Like, submit it. Just submit it. Not only are you opening up people across the Midwest, but I have sent books that I've received to people on the East Coast and the West Coast. I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't know what's going to happen to it, but that's the beauty of book awards is it's this visibility that you have goes beyond what you can ever even think. Like, you have no idea who I know, who you mentioned in a book. Oh, I know, actually know that person. Let me send them a copy of this. And then it shows up on their social media page. And you're like, how did you even get a copy of this? So that's the beauty of the book awards. Now, Barbara, I want to ask you, have you observed since 2019 any changes in the quality or the types of submissions that you have been receiving as a judge? Now, keep it, and I don't know, you know what? Let me ask you this before. Do you always judge the same basic categories or do you move around?
I
You
judge
judge
the
the
same.
same ones. So that's a great
Since the
question for you.
beginning, I was doing social science, political science, and culture, and for the last 4 years or so, done total book design. So if folks don't know what total book design is, it sounds so complete, doesn't it? But it is. We judge the cover, the text, the spine, the typeface, the darkness of the typeface, the interior appearance, the interior layout, the front and back, um, front cover, back cover, spine, in papers, all that gets judged. And you come up with some numbers for that. But
Right.
yeah. So what was your
Have you
question?
noticed a change in the type of quality or even the types of submissions, especially since you've been static in your thing? I think Sky and I have moved around,
Jumped
so I
around.
wouldn't be a good,
Jumpers.
yeah,
Jumpers.
I need to pick a category and stick with it, but I'm so interested in all these different things.
Um, I let me think. How do I put this? I encourage authors, publishers to look at the MIPA evaluation information and
Metrics.
what we use to evaluate. I say that not just because then you'll win. I say it because they're pretty sound items that I think most, they're not unique. But then, I mean, if you go to another association's book award, there'll be similar criteria and application of those. So changes over time. I'm always really pleased with the breadth of content that comes from the Midwest. So we've got books about phenomena occurring nationally that are in the Midwest.
Right.
So gay rights in the Midwest, And then there too, to learn how important Wisconsin was in gay rights, dare I say, even before California. So, and biographies of Midwesterners we see. And some of the books I just like from a design perspective. So it's not just the cover, it's total book design. So there's a book, My Heart Grows, that was published in 2020. That was a kid's, you could argue, is it a kid's book or not a kid's book? But it was how a heart grows as their world expands and as their ideas expand. I'm like, that is such a cool book. For a year, I had it on my bookshelf open so people could see it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what, if I'm hearing you correctly, you may not have noticed a change in the types of books, but you would encourage submitters to read the criteria so that they can have the best shot at actually getting the gold.
If they're trying to get the MIPA award, then yeah, read the judging criteria.
I mean, there's definitely something to be said for just submitting it and then
Right.
having your eyes on it. Now, this is
Right.
the question that is not, I told you this is just going to be a conversation. So some of the questions I'm not going to pull. Have you ever said, oh, this book is high scoring and was surprised that the other judges, now keep in mind, for those of you that have not been a judge, we don't know who the other judges are. Sometimes there's a document where we might see names, but we don't see one another. We're not on these calls very often, and we are in our own silos, reading our books, choosing our categories. Have you ever marked a book, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then you find out that other people didn't, the other judges were like, no? And were you surprised by that? Because that has happened to me. I was like, oh, I love this book, it was amazing, and it didn't win. And I was like, burn it to the ground. No, I'm
You
just
need to hang with me. I pick the winners.
do you pick the
No.
winners?
Oh yeah. I think every book I've rated highly, others have rated highly in my categories. So a book might not get gold, even though I really think it should. It gets silver. So what we're really talking about in some ways, consistency across judges. And in the categories I judge, I believe there's pretty good inter-rater agreement
Okay.
on the scoring.
What about you, Sky? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, it's gone both ways.
Same.
So for me, I find that really interesting because there was one that, and as an educator, I am conditioned to compliment sandwich. And so I really try to, in working with high school kids, give a positive feedback, the
Critique.
critical, yeah, and then another positive. And there was one book that I just like I really struggled with, and it seemed to be a favorite. So it was just me. It was just me. Whatever. But then there's other books that, I'm like, this was amazing. And
And like, no, whoever the other judges were, they weren't having a good day that day.
yeah. So it's really interesting.
So I'm glad you said that, Sky, because it reminds me of a book, and I will not say what the book was. I was like, how can my fellow judges view it that way? I was just like, if I say too much, I'm gonna give it away, I think, so I can't say much. But I'm just like, it had a hidden, not that hidden, theme of bullying. And I'm like, how can it may be the same book, Sky? I don't know. But I'm like, how can others regard this so highly when it's got this
Undertone
tone to it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really the first, and I hope the last time that happens, where I wasn't, how do I want to put it, that there wasn't as much, there could have been more inter-rater reliability there. And I just, in some ways, how could they not see it? I still feel that to this day.
So as you read these books And sometimes you have, as Barbara put it, interrateability agreements, and sometimes you don't. Do you read books as a judge differently than you read them for leisure? Can you talk a little bit about that process, Sky?
Well, there's been um so in the different categories, like one year I was judging children's, I think it was illustrations. And so I read them several times
Mhm.
as a, like with my different hats on, I guess.
Mhm.
So one, I read them as a librarian. At the time I was a library director. So I was thinking, would I put this in my library? But then I had to go back and put on, for the illustrations and really think as a child or as a parent. Um, and then read it again as a judge. And so kind of combining all of those.
Yeah. So
uh,
if you pick up a book, if someone says, well, do you read children's books now? That's the question. Like, do you read them? Well,
mm,
you were a library director, so you did, I'm sure.
yeah, I mean, I did, yes, because in that role, um, I tried, I just did a little bit of everything. So there would
Yeah.
be days that I'd pop in the children's room and talk to moms and kids and get on the floor and read a book with a child. Or so it was just something that I tried to keep my interest in all different
Yeah.
genres. But
And
then
so,
there's other books that I may have um marked up because, like a big fiction book because the grammar was off.
hmm hmm
So in that case, like I had a highlighter and I was highlighting things in the book that was just off because it,
could help yourself.
yeah. And I wanted to go back and see if I was going crazy or if it was really something that was off.
Yeah. I have read a book, a children's book, to myself, read it to my children out loud, and it changes a little bit. Um, so yeah, but for leisure, how would you, so if you're on the floor reading to a child, you're just doing the inflection and the voices and all of that versus like grammar, order, structure. Does this make sense? Do you ever add words when you're reading children's books on the floor?
Um,
Like, am I the only one that does this? Sometimes I add things.
well, it's funny because now I read to my nephew
Yeah.
and he's an infant, but for some reason, when I read to him, he is engaged in the book. And my brother is like, this is so amazing because he's never done this. And I totally add things. I mean, we talk about the illustrations. I talk to him about the illustrations,
Mhm.
what we see, and sometimes add words or a little bit more context.
Yeah. There is a question in the chat. Mimi has asked about 2 or 3 marketing strategies that we would recommend for MIPA winners to capitalize on the award. Um, I'm going to ask both of you, but I'm really interested to know what Barbara has to say because my answer is heavily based on social media and using the internet. And so I'm interested to know what Barbara says about this. And obviously this is not a question that we have prepared for. So, if you're like, oh, I don't really have an answer for that, then feel free. But for
Yeah.
me, I can't talk about strategies without mentioning um, Facebook, Instagram, and now there's Book Talk. I have not taken advantage of Book Talk as an author, but all of my friends are saying like you need to get on here. You need to read snippets of your book. You can just read 2 lines with some music in the background and put the hashtags that apply to it. So when people click that hashtag, it comes up to them on TikTok. And the same thing for Instagram. The process of how you wrote your book, it seems so obnoxious. And I am that person to set up your phone and record yourself doing something. It's so obnoxious. But people eat that type of content up on social media. Like they want to see you typing at your laptop. They want to see you editing if you record yourself with a red marker, like literally going through your thing, getting your books, you got the award. All of this real life content can go on social media. And if you're using hashtags that are popular, people will find your book via that hashtag. If you tag your favorite author who you always looked up to, there's a chance they could repost it, post to your story, ask your friends to engage on social media. So not just liking it, but text your 5 best friends and say, hey, can you do a smiley face on my content? I just want the algorithm to pick it up. It seems so obnoxious, and I know it is, but
So what I'm going to say there on that now,
yes. Well, you got your pen in your hand, so I know you got some good notes. Come on, Barbara.
just because I use Facebook doesn't mean I don't use my computer. Okay. I don't believe in
I
social
said the
media. I
internet. I
think
didn't
it's
say your
evil. I think
computer.
it's evil. Okay, what I'm going to then do is challenge MIPA to figure out ways of better using social media to let itself be known. Okay. One thing I would do if I was in control of the world is if an author or publisher won a MIPA award, I would ask that publisher and author to cite the MIPA award. If they mention their book on social media, hey, MIPA Gold Award, MIPA Bronze Award, right? Because the more something, I mean, a lot of people don't know what the Hugo Award is, but we hear it and we go, oh, it's got to be good. It's the Hugo Award. So I would encourage MIPA as an organization to figure out how it can utilize social media to promote the books, and then what obligation, I don't know, obligations may be too strict, but what enhancements can the authors create themselves and publishers themselves by citing the MIPA award? I know Jennifer has created stickers for the physical book. So if your book is out there, consider putting stickers on them. I'm not sure how book sellers are about award stickers, but that would be an option. I guess those are 2 different strategies, I would say.
I like that, Barbara. I think holding MIPA to task, even if there's just a template for people to use. Hey, you just won the book awards.
Yeah.
One of my
So
interns. I told you they.
I don't want to put it on the MIPA winner to have to come up with language. I mean, they can if they want, but maybe if MIPA itself would provide some suggestions for how MIPA could be cited.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
maybe
This
like a
reminds
template.
me of when working in the library and the student assistants working in the library, and I said a part of the student manual should be how to put our library on their resume, right? So students don't necessarily know how to best cite their activities on their resume. Well, with some guidance, they can do it, and they can do it better. So, yeah.
I love the idea of a sticker. Oh, Sky, go ahead.
Well, in regards to, or I guess to talk about Mimi's question, suggestions or ways to market the Zoom workshop to libraries and teachers. So we all know, or at least I think we do, libraries' budgets are constantly being slashed. So when I was a director, I was constantly being asked by authors to come in and speak, but then they would have this fee. And when it comes down to it, like I have to make decisions. Yes, I love programming, but when an author will come in and or an illustrator will come in and do a program for my library, one, we would promote the heck out of it. Put it on our Facebook, our social media, and not only that, but like within our community. And then the people who work there would put it on their social media. Our patrons would then share it out. So the word of mouth gets out. And I know, like, listen, I know it costs money to do these things, but sometimes picking a couple of libraries, highlighting them, and then really working with them to make sure that that promotion gets out, not
I'd
only,
also say, oh, sorry.
nope, go ahead.
I'd also say, remember your media. I mean, that is your print media, your TV media in your area. I know TV stations need visual things, okay? They don't want just talking heads talking. So if you're giving a workshop where you have books and you have kids or teachers with books in their hand, call up your local radio station, TV station in particular, and say, hey, I'm giving this workshop. There's going to be 25 kids holding, 100 books in their hands. This would be great for our community, don't you think? And it's at 7:00 at this specific address, and I look forward to seeing you there. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful, especially in terms of, yes, I do have a nominal fee because it's a Zoom, but I can waive the fee and think about it more in terms of word of mouth. So thank you.
Right. And I know, it is hard because you have to make money and survive as well. But when it was with my budget, I really had to make some tough decisions, and people that could offer programming, we would work really hard for them because they didn't charge us a fee to present. We'd work really hard to make it worth their time and hopefully promote those books. They could sell those books. They could do those
Yeah,
things there.
That's
So,
great advice. Thank you. That kind of reframes where I might take it. So I appreciate it.
Okay, so looking at the time, I have one last question that I would like to ask the both of you. And if there are more questions, please put them in the chat. I do want to be mindful of all of your time. I know that it is later on the East Coast time than it is here Central, so I definitely want to be mindful of that. If you could give any tip to an author publisher, what would it be?
oh gosh. I'm gonna have to think about that for a moment.
Give me 20% of your royalty and I promote your book to the death. No, I
Barbara,
had to have a little humor
who knew
there.
you were such a capitalist?
You haven't met me, have you? I would say do it. Okay. Just do it and do it with quality, but don't stymie yourself with an over concern over quality. Okay. So as an co-editor of a book that we edited 31 chapters, okay, these were academic librarians for the most part, writing about academic library things. Grammar, don't assume all librarians know grammar. So not all authors will be really high on that. So work with the publisher, and get others to help review your book before you even send it to a publisher. But you'd be amazed at what your friends will help you do sometimes, or a pizza or whatever. So do it.
Just do it. Nike.
Not Nike.
Okay.
Barb. Do it, Barb.
Barb.
I think even just getting the words, Sky would say as a counselor, I bet that getting your thoughts and ideas on paper, that can be enough. That's a mindfulness activity that honors your experience. Now, if you say that experience is only valuable if you make money at it, okay. But honor the experience for the experience.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sky?
absolutely. I love that. Honor the experience for the experience. I think, granted, I've never been through the book publishing process, so I may be just completely off base here, but don't compromise
Hmm.
your vision, I guess. And I say that because with some of the books, it was almost like what was on the outside didn't match what was on the inside. And I'm not sure that was the author's vision.
Hmm.
But I think it's, it's obviously a process, and I'm not that well versed in it. I just read the books and submit my feedback.
I think Sky's mentioning something there, and I think we as judges need to be cognizant of this. Authors don't always get to pick their covers, right?
Mhm.
And depending on the publisher, they may be, this is what we think will sell your idea. And that's where you get 50 books with an ombre cover,
Yeah. I'm seeing questions in the chat about credibility of various awards, commenting on the expense of submitting to various awards. I think, and this is difficult, as someone who applied to be a judge, I did a lot of research. I saw how long they had been around. I looked at how far back the awardees went. I even went to some previous authors' social media pages to see how many books they had written, whether they actually mentioned MIPA. And I hate when people say, do your research, but that really is it. It might require a little bit of digging. You know what I have found among us book community folk? We are very friendly people. And if you reach out to us, we will answer. So if there is a website that they have, if you reach out to whether it is someone who won the award, whether it's someone who is on the board of directors, like, hey, what's up with this? They will most likely answer you. Now, I neglected to do something when I first started. And so I'm going to share my screen as we close out to talk a little bit more about the Midwest Book Awards. My sincerest apologies, but I know Jennifer would get on me if I did not do what I was supposed to do. Okay. So just really quickly, we've been talking a lot about how it works, what we feel as judges, what our experience was. But I do, and even as a piggyback to the question, how do you choose which awards to enter? Reasons why that you should is digital visibility, you boost your online discoverability, long-term visibility. As I mentioned, going to the MIPA website, scrolling all the way back years and years, it could randomly, my mouse land on something that is from 10 years ago. I'm like, that book sounds interesting, actually. So it can contribute to your long-term author or publisher brand visibility, credibility boost. Winning or being shortlisted does add prestige, and of course, marketing opportunities, as we've been talking about tonight. With the industry recognition, the sales potential, networking, and events like these, the feedback that you get, constructive feedback from our judges, from us as the judges, and media attention. Library and bookstore interest. We have two librarians on the call. Personal and professional growth. It can be a learning experience for authors and publishers. Sometimes that award sticker means that a reader will trust that book, that it has been vetted. Long-term career benefits, in addition to how to decide which award programs to enter. Okay, so this is the slide that your question reminded me, I did not answer this question at the beginning, so please forgive me. Again, my interns keep me busy. You sure can, come on. So how to decide? Research is crucial. Look into the history, reputation, and past winners. Seek awards with transparent processes and qualified judges. If they don't have their criteria on their website, it may not be a reputable place. They just want to take your money and go. All right. The organizer integrity. Please be cautious of the programs that are ran by vanity presses or profit-focused companies. Yeah. Evaluate the cost versus the benefits. Ensure that the entry fee aligns with the award's prestige and potential impact. Quality over quantity. Be careful about programs with an excessive number of categories. It's just category on category. It's a money grab. They're trying to get as many people. They have a category for people that write about water, a category for people that write about, specific to one thing. Like, just be wary of those things. As Paul has done online in the chat already, you honey, MIPA put together a resource document that includes tips for discerning which award program is right for you, and a list of book award programs outside of the Midwest Book Awards. And this link right down here, which we will send out to everyone, I believe, that has been on this call. I'm going to try to put it in the chat. There's resources for you. So I don't want you to feel as though we are only promoting MIPA. We want you to win. We want every single one of you to submit. We want you to win. That didn't really taste that well, so I have to figure out how to do that. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to thank Sky. I want to thank Barbara for your insight, your humor, being on the call and being present with us. And I also want to thank all of you for listening, adding questions, and the questions that you didn't ask that maybe were answered. And feel free. We are here. Paul is here, that you can always ask questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Paul and say thank you again for the opportunity to represent MIPA and for my youngest intern to represent as well on the call. I will see you soon. Paul, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, thanks for that. And I think we'll just kind of, I think, keep it open here. If anybody else has a general discussion, Nate will kind of host that. But otherwise, this was awesome. Thank you, all three of you, Cherayla, Sky, Barb. I mean, this was tremendously useful information, and great to hear it from your point of view as well.